Imagine a whisper carried on the unforgiving winds of the Asian steppe, a whisper that became a shout, then a roar, and finally, a tempest of horse and steel. For centuries, the scattered tribes of Mongolia were a fractious tapestry, bound only by blood feuds and the endless struggle for survival. Their world was one of stark beauty and brutal scarcity, where the rustle of dry grass underfoot and the scent of wood smoke mingled with the ever-present threat of a rival clan. But from this crucible of hardship, an unprecedented force began to coalesce. A single ambition, sparked in the heart of one man, would ignite a firestorm that would scorch the very foundations of empires, reshaping maps and rewriting the destiny of half the known world. This is the story of how scattered nomads, driven by an unyielding will, forged an empire of unimaginable scale, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of human conquest. To understand the Mongol Horde, we must first understand the man who forged it. Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan. Born around 1162, his early life was a tapestry woven with threads of trauma and betrayal. His father, Yasugei, a minor chieftain, was poisoned by a rival tribe when Temujin was barely 9. Overnight, his family was cast out, left to fend for themselves in a wilderness that offered no quarter. This wasn't merely a setback, it was a sentence of destitution and humiliation. Temujin, his mother, and his siblings were reduced to hunting marmots and fishing to survive. The scent of fear and desperation clung to them. He knew hunger. He knew cold. He knew the biting sting of betrayal when his own half-brother, Bekta, threatened their meager resources, leading Temujin to a desperate act, the killing of his own kin. This early bloodshed, born of necessity and survival, hinted at a ruthless pragmatism that would define his future. His youth was a relentless school of hard knocks. He was captured and enslaved by the Taichi-Ud tribe, forced to wear a kangwe, a wooden yoke, a symbol of ultimate subjugation. But even then, the fire of defiance burned. He escaped, a testament to his sheer will to survive. These early struggles were not merely formative, they were foundational. They instilled in him an unshakable resolve, a deep understanding of loyalty and betrayal, and a burning desire for a unity that would prevent such suffering from ever befalling his people again. He learned to trust few, but to inspire unwavering devotion in those he did. His charisma, even in adversity, began to draw men to him, outcasts, drifters, those who saw in his steely gaze the promise of something more than endless tribal skirmishes. The seeds of the future empire were sown in the barren soil of his tormented youth. Before Temujin, the Mongol steppe was a fractured mosaic of warring tribes, the Merkits, the Tatars, the Kerets, the Naimans. Their existence was a perpetual cycle of raids, reprisals, and shifting alliances. There was no grand strategy, no collective vision, only the primal instinct for survival and dominance within a limited sphere. The very concept of a unified Mongol identity was an elusive dream, drowned out by the clang of tribal skirmishes. Temujin, however, saw beyond the immediate horizon. He understood that true power lay not in ephemeral victories, but in absolute unity. He began a systematic, often brutal campaign to consolidate power. He didn't just defeat his enemies, he absorbed them. Those who swore fealty were integrated, their skills and manpower added to his growing strength. Those who resisted utterly faced annihilation. His methods were often shocking, the execution of all male members of the defeated Tatar tribe above the height of a cartwheel, for instance. But they sent an unequivocal message. Resistance was futile, and loyalty would be rewarded. His genius lay not just in military prowess, but in social engineering. He abolished traditional tribal hierarchies, promoting individuals based on merit rather than birth. This radical shift fostered loyalty directly to him and to the burgeoning Mongol nation, rather than to old clan loyalties. He codified laws, known as the Yasa, which brought order and discipline to a society historically governed by vengeance. The Yasa protected trade, ensured religious tolerance, and most importantly, demanded absolute obedience to the Khan. By 1206, after decades of relentless struggle, the unthinkable happened. The fragmented tribes of the steppe gathered at the Onon River, and Temujin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler. The hammer had finally forged the scattered iron into a single, terrifyingly effective blade. What made the Mongol army so utterly unstoppable? It wasn't simply numbers, though their hosts could be vast. It was a revolutionary combination of discipline, mobility, and strategic brilliance. Their cavalry, masters of the composite bow, could loose a deadly hail of arrows with terrifying accuracy from horseback, then retreat and feign flight, luring their enemies into devastating ambushes. This was not mere brute force. It was a sophisticated ballet of death. Every Mongol warrior was a highly skilled, self-sufficient fighting unit. They could ride for days with minimal provisions, living off their horses' milk and blood if necessary. Their famous stirrups allowed them to stand and shoot with incredible stability, transforming their mounts into mobile firing platforms. They moved with a speed that confounded their enemies, appearing seemingly out of nowhere, striking with devastating force and vanishing just as quickly. But their brilliance extended beyond the open steppe. When faced with formidable walled cities, the Mongols adapted with remarkable speed. They readily adopted siege technologies from their conquered foes, catapults, trebuchets, and even early forms of gunpowder weapons. They would conscript engineers and laborers from captured populations, forcing them to build the very machines that would bring down their own people's defenses. The psychological warfare was as potent as their arrows. Rumors of their cruelty, often exaggerated by the Mongols themselves, preceded them, shattering morale long before the first arrow flew. Cities would often surrender without a fight, choosing submission over the unthinkable terror of a Mongol assault. The name Mongol became synonymous with destruction, a chilling whisper carried on the wind that emptied cities and paralyzed armies. Genghis Khan first turned his gaze east, towards the ancient and wealthy civilizations of China. The Jin dynasty in the north and the Song dynasty in the south represented unimaginable riches and a vast, sophisticated culture. The Mongols, initially dismissed as barbarians, brought a level of destruction that shocked the established powers. Cities like Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, fell after protracted sieges, their inhabitants facing unimaginable horrors. The fertile lands of China, with their meticulously cultivated fields and bustling cities, were transformed into desolate stretches of ash and ruins. But the most pivotal moment of expansion, the one that truly announced the Mongol threat to the wider world, came with the clash against the Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia. This vast Muslim empire, stretching from Persia to India, was a formidable power. Their Shah, Muhammad II, made a fatal miscalculation. He executed Mongol envoys, a grave insult and a direct challenge to Genghis Khan's authority. The Khan, infuriated by this act of defiance, vowed vengeance. What followed was a campaign of unprecedented ferocity. In 1219, Genghis Khan unleashed his full wrath. The Mongol war machine swept across Central Asia like a plague, systematically dismantling the Khwarezmian Empire. Cities like Bukhara, Samarkand, and Urgench, once glittering jewels of Islamic civilization, were razed to the ground. Their populations were massacred or enslaved, their libraries burned, their cultural treasures obliterated. The Shah fled, hounded relentlessly by Mongol forces until he died on a desolate island in the Caspian Sea. The message was clear: no one was safe, and defiance meant utter destruction. This campaign opened the floodgates for further Mongol expansion, paving the way for their terrifying thrust into Europe and the Middle East. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but his empire, inherited by his sons and grandsons, continued to expand, becoming the largest contiguous land empire in history. From Korea to Hungary, from Russia to Vietnam, a single, albeit fractured, power dominated. Paradoxically, after the initial devastation, the Mongols ushered in an era known as the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. By unifying vast swathes of Eurasia, The Mongols inadvertently facilitated unprecedented cultural exchange and trade. The Silk Road, revitalized and protected by Mongol patrols, became a vibrant artery of commerce, connecting east and west. Ideas, technologies, religions, and goods flowed freely across the continent. Compass technology, printing, gunpowder, and even noodles traveled from China westward, while medical knowledge and astronomical advancements made their way east. Yet, the empire Genghis Khan had forged with such singular purpose eventually succumbed to its own vastness and the inherent rivalries among his descendants. It was a force of nature, born from the harsh realities of the steppe and forged by the indomitable will of a visionary leader. What do you think about the Mongols' rapid rise to power? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Myth and Battle for more epic tales, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure.